Let's get a word now with Ian Newbold from Wednesbury, whose wife Samantha died suddenly in 2005 when their son Max was just 7 months old, and he now writes the blog Single Parents Blog. How are you, Ian?
I'm very well, Adrian. Thank you.
Ian, how old are you?
I am 34.
You're 34, so your missus died when you were 27?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and
She was 30.
What were the circumstances of that?
Straightforward heart attack, really. We were totally unexpected. It wasn't something we were prepared for. It wasn't an illness that gave any signs of a tragic end, as it were. We were actually we went from one extreme to the other because we were on our first family holiday together in a lovely cottage on the coast near Weston, enjoying ourselves, really happy. And Samantha goes to bed really full of the joys of life, a 7-month-old son, and doesn't wake up the next day. So we were sort of left devastated from a standing start without any prior warning, really.
And you're two young people there with all of your life ahead of you. You've got, your little lad who, no doubt, she cherished, who you cherish, and then suddenly in an instant, all falls apart.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a perfect life, really, before to then be just shattered overnight, in the blink of an eye, a couple of hours.
I'm sure you'll tell me you never can get over that, but of course, at some level, you have to get over it, and you have to get over it pretty immediately because you've got this 7-month-old lad who's totally dependent on you.
Yeah, I think it's something you learn to deal with rather than get over. But having a young child, a very young child, is a blessing in a way because of the demands that they put on you. The fact that he was blissfully unaware, really, of any sort of change going on, any loss to him. He just wanted to be fed and changed every 2 hours. So he was actually something to focus on. And when you're in that sort of state of shock and going through that sort of change so quickly, having something to focus on in very short terms and very, very minimal amounts of time, rather than thinking about tomorrow, was actually a blessing.
Yeah, there's a stage, I think, where the children, I'm not quite sure now what the age might be, around 2 to 3, where they become quite clingy, and they can get quite clingy about mum. But certainly in the first year, 18 months, the only thing is they want the bum wiped and they want the next bottle, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think it's something I wasn't really aware of, and I was sort of anticipating him pining for his mother, and it's something he didn't really do as a baby at that time, because like you say, he was hungry, he was uncomfortable, he got a temperature, and he'd tell you about it, whereas I don't think he really knew who it was at the end of the bottle or the end of the wipe or the end of the dirty nappy. I don't think he really, blissfully, thankfully, didn't know what was befallen him, really.
But it's one of these curious things as well, though, in the midst of such a tragedy, as you acknowledge, your lad is a blessing to you because, you could have been blown away by that incident. And I'm sure that emotionally you were, but there was something mechanical, something practical that you had to do that just, I guess, kept you on the straight and narrow and gave you something to live for and look forward to.
Absolutely. I think it puts you in an immediate state of zombiness. You can't focus on anything. You can't think about what you're going to do in the next 20 minutes. Whereas if you've got, at 1 o'clock, that child is going to be screaming at you because you've missed a feed or they're dirty or they're tired. It did give you something, some relief, which is ridiculous because most people will tell you that having a newborn child is hard work and it's graft and it's a pain, rather than actually for me it was like I was waiting for him to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning because I was often lying there awake pondering my future, pondering what had gone on, still shocked at it all, and to have him to squawk at 2 in the morning, I was almost, I'm not sure I'd raise much of a smile, but I felt a bit of warmth inside to have, he needs me now, I need to go and get out my pit and get him back in his.
Yeah, no, I can understand that, and it's just, it's a great thing, isn't it? And to come out of a terrible tragedy, because that bond that you have as a dad. I like to think I've got a bond with my two little girls, but certainly when they're little, you're in no doubt as a father. You know, you are second rank.
Yeah.
When they're a certain age, they get a bit older, and then you might assume a bit more of an importance. But you know, when they're really little, mum is number one. There's no two ways about it. But I guess for you and Max, there's this incredible bond now.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult because he's my only child. It's my first experience of parenting, and our bond is, to me, it's incredible, and it's something that I'm grateful for. The silver lining from the dark cloud of Samantha passing was that I got that opportunity to spend this time with him as an infant and form an unbelievable relationship where we. You know, I'm his parent, but there's also a bond of I know I can predict what he's going to do. He knows when I'm down, and to bring me up, and he can raise a smile, and likewise the other way around. We bounce off each other, quite literally.
and did you have family support around us as well?
Yes, I mean I was in a fortunate position that I'd got. Or Max had got two sets of loving and able grandparents. They're not spring chickens, and they won't thank me for saying that, but they're certainly able to take him and give me support. But one of the things really at the beginning, I probably resisted it at the outset to give myself a bit of an identity. I didn't want to become the second-class parent, even to grandmothers, say, for example, because I think there was a lot of assumption that I'd got a good job, I was well paid, that it would be easier and make more sense to a lot of people from the outside to allow the grandparents to step up as full-time parents.
Yeah, the grandparents would collectively become the surrogate mum.
Correct, yeah.
And you just carry on doing your job.
And I'd carry on being like Mr. Clooney puts it, the backup parent, which was something I was just desperate to avoid. And that was my sole focus, really, that I needed an identity as Max's dad. And I was, made sure that happened, really, through practical means and getting out and about with him.
And have you seen the Clooney film, by the way?
I haven't. I wanted to go yesterday, but with the snow,
yeah. No, I want to see. But you mentioned then, so the option is there. You're dealing with this awful grief, with this terrible tragedy in your life. You've got your beautiful son there, who is the thing for you to hold on to emotionally as well as physically, and the temptation, as you say, must be there then to let one of the grandmas or both of the grandmas sort of become his mum, and you carry on. But you didn't. You gave up your job. Tell us what you were doing, and for a bloke of your age, I presume giving up your full-time work, that just must have been a bit weird. Quite a hurdle to cross in itself psychologically.
I think so. Yeah, I was an operations manager for a firm in Smethwick, Albury, and basically in charge of a site of people. So I was in control of all the selling functions of a business, the distribution of a business. So it was very sort of hectic office-based jobs, negotiating with suppliers, customers.
But quite senior.
Yeah, I'd risen quite quickly. I was well paid. So it wasn't a job I could consider doing part-time or even giving half of myself to. It was something that I needed to either walk away from or use to support myself and Max. But I pretty much decided instantly that I wanted to be there as a full-time parent for Max. I thought that was much more important than the money that I would have earned from the job. It was always the plan that one of us would be with Max, and that would have been Samantha had it stuck to plan A. But as we were stuck with an abrupt plan B, it was quickly apparent that I needed to give up work, which admittedly was strange, not having an alarm clock go off for work and to put a suit and tie on and to go and think you're important, negotiating all sorts of different trivial things as I look back.
To wiping the baby's bottom.
To wiping the baby's bottom, which isn't trivial at all.
We'll talk more about this, Ian. This is fascinating stuff. Ian Newbold from Wednesbury, who gave up his job. He was an operations manager at a firm in Smethwick, Albury. Tragedy struck. He was just 27. His wife Samantha was just 30. They were on a family holiday in Somerset. Overnight, his world is turned upside down when Samantha, no prior warning, tragically passes away with a heart attack. He now runs a blog celebrating his life as a single dad, and Max, his son, who was then 7 months old, gives him something to look forward to and something to fasten onto. It's a great little story, and we'll talk more in a moment to Ian about how single dads are sort of made to disappear in society, sort of made invisible. If you are a single dad, and maybe you've seen some of the buzz around this Clooney film or heard some of what Ian has had to say, does that strike a chord with you? I can't imagine what it would be like to be suddenly left like that as he was overnight. So 08453 009956. Also discussing this morning what it's like to be a single dad. We're chatting with Ian Newbold. Ian runs the blog Single Parent Dad, and he's from Wednesbury. He was 27 when his wife Samantha, who was just 30, died 7 years ago on their first family holiday together in Somerset with their little lad Max, who was then just 7 months old. And Ian, it's a tragic story. It's also in some ways an uplifting story, because you have got this incredible bond with your lad, and you say you gave up your job. How did you find that at first then? You were, quite a hectic, a pretty successful guy in your way, weren't you? And then suddenly you are doing the mundane things that traditionally, conventionally, I'm not saying it has to be this way, but in society, the kind of work that, housewives have done.
Yeah, I think because I was in shock and a bit numb, I was probably unaware of the abnormality of what I was doing, really, being at the playgroups, etc. And it wasn't until the sort of clouds started to go away a bit that I sort of was more aware of being in a female-dominated world and being very sort of novel in these sort of places of swimming sessions and dancing with rhyme time with your children and reading sessions at the library. And they're all very good and enjoyable in isolation, but intimidating for a man to go to. I can remember taking deep breaths before I was going into places like that for the first time, and it would be a case of find a corner, sit in it, try not to cause too much fuss, make sure my child enjoys it, and leave. That was the sort of plan right at the beginning.
Yeah. Don't think I'm minimising your loss for one moment, but the plus out of it is, and by giving up your job as well, what you've done though. I worked for a couple of years, mostly down in London, while my two kids now, who are 7 and 4, when they were very, very much smaller than they are now, and for the best part of 2 years, I only saw them at weekends.
Yeah.
You've seen Max every day of his life, and you've had that, just that, to witness your child and that influence over your child, that closeness that most dads just don't get because they are out at work, And again, that's part of the gift that's come out of this terrible loss, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I can see that. Going to work for the short time that I did, perhaps 6 months as a working dad, coming home tired, thinking I'd had a much harder day than Samantha had, and being given the rotten end of the day to bath Max perhaps and get him to sleep when he was grumpy, didn't want to go to bed. So I was, she would always say, "You've seen the worst of him. You come home from your job and he's miserable for you, whereas he's been great today."
Yeah.
So
you're physically low at that point as well,
absolutely,
aren't you? And yeah. So when did you start the blog, and what lay behind that?
It's a bit hazy when I started. I think it's about 2007 I started writing the blog, but it was pretty much based around the fact that it wasn't obvious I was going to go back to doing what I did previously. It was a job that I was good at but wasn't a passion. So I was like, what do I want to do? It was a chance to sort of relook at what I wanted to do professionally, and writing was something I've always been interested in. And because of my plight, quite a lot of journalists were very helpful and welcoming for me to give me experience and advice, and one of them was to start writing a blog. It's an unpressured environment to write in. Pick a subject that you can have lots of material. And at the time I was building a house and being a dad, so I started 2 blogs, and the Single Parent Dad blog continues till now, because obviously as a parent, as you well know, there'll be an infinite amount of subject material for you to write any numbered day of the week.
Have you heard that poem? I've had it downloaded, actually. I can't play it in front of the kids. It's called Go the bleep to sleep. Have you?
Yeah.
Which again it's just a little poem, which was a bestseller in its own right. But you've obviously touched a nerve. Then I mean, the fact that the Bogs kept going from 2007 to 2012, there's an audience for it. That you're reaching a market maybe that isn't being catered for by the mainstream media, and just talking about single dads.
Yeah, I think there's a general absence of support for single dads, or certainly even if it's out there, it's difficult. It's not promoted very well. People who find themselves in a similar position to me, and in a lot of cases in worse situations, as in children that are going through grief immediately, whether that's through the loss of a mother, or a mother that's abandoned them, which can be even more difficult to explain to a child and for them to understand. So there's a clamour for those dads to find some support somewhere, and I think that, you know, if I help a little way and can put them in contact with the charities that do exist, and the initiatives that do seem to be starting, that is, you know, it's all beneficial. It's all a very good and worthy thing. It feels like to do, to help parents out as much as I can, where I can, really.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people will be checking it out this afternoon. Thank you so much for coming in, Ian, and good luck to you. Good luck to you and Max. So at the moment, what's your work situation? Are you still full-time dad?
I'm still a full-time dad, but because he's at school, I've got time in the day, so I'm doing after all sorts of projects. There's a book that I'm working on, which will take some time to come to fruition because of the limited amount of time I have to work on it. And then there's other things I do day to day.
And Max is thriving and flourishing?
Absolutely, yeah. He's looking forward to half term next week. Enjoyed the snow at the weekend. So yeah, he's doing really well at school, and he went to school with a smile on his face this morning, slushing through in his wellies, and I hope to find him similarly at the way back, but I imagine he'll be a bit wetter come 3:30 today.
Brilliant stuff. That's Ian Newbold, is the author of Single Parent Blog. What a fine story, and good luck to him and to Max. And if you are a single parent, I wonder if any of what Ian has had to say, Ian from Wednesbury, resonates with you, whether you think, yeah, I've been there. If you want to share your story with us, 08453 00 9956. And if there's something like Ian's story that you want to share with us, maybe worth the 10, 15, 20 minutes of our time here on BBC WM, as Ian's story clearly was, then just drop us an email and we'll see if we can squeeze you in one day. Adrian.Goldberg at bbc.co.uk. But I do recommend it. Excellent blog, Single Parent Dads, written by Ian Newbold. You're listening to BBC WM 95.6. It's now